Welcome to another deep dive. We're going to be looking at give and take today. And, we've been wanting to do this one for a while, really dig into it.
Yeah, it's a great book. It's all about reciprocity styles, right? So like givers and takers, and then the people in between, the matchers.
Right.
And the book is really interesting. It shows how givers, surprisingly, I think, to some people, can use giving as a way to get ahead, particularly in a competitive industry like media, which is what we're talking about today.
That's what we're here for. We want to know how, specifically, we can use this giving mentality, giving tactics, whatever. How can we use this stuff in this book to become successful in media?
Yeah.
So I guess that's our mission for today, right?
Exactly. And, I think a lot of people have the wrong idea about what it means to be a giver, especially in media, right? You think you got to be like cutthroat, take no prisoners, all that. But give and take presents a really different perspective. The givers who are the most successful, it argues, aren't just blindly generous. They have a strong sense of their own goals, but they also genuinely want to help others. The book calls this eaterish giving, and we'll get into that. But basically, it means you're not just being selfless, you're being strategic in your giving as well.
Okay, so you're not just like giving away your time and energy for nothing. There's a method to the madness.
Right.
I like it.
All right, so let's jump in. First up, let's talk about networking. I mean, networking is essential in media, right? It's how you meet people, build relationships, get your foot in the door.
It's everything.
And Give and Take has this great story about this guy, Adam Riskin, a software engineer, and he's like this master networker, right?
Okay, but software engineering, what's that got to do with media?
Well, it's not about the specific industry, it's about the principles behind it.
Okay, got it.
So Rifkin built this incredible network, not through being all pushy and self-promotional, but through just consistently being generous. He was famous for doing these 5-minute favors, that's what he called them, like little acts of kindness, like making introductions or giving feedback. Things that didn't take a lot of time, but were super helpful to people.
So instead of sawing his way to the top, he built a network by supporting people. Interesting strategy.
Right, and it paid off big time. People wanted to work with him, help him out, because he had this reputation for being a giver.
Yeah, I could see that. I mean, who wouldn't want to work with someone who's always willing to lend a hand?
Exactly.
Speaking of relationships, the book also talks about the power of these dormant ties. It's like people you haven't talked to in forever.
Yeah, it sounds counterintuitive, but those connections can actually be super valuable. They've been off doing their own thing, gaining new experiences and perspectives, so they might have insights or connections that you wouldn't find within your usual circle.
It's like tacking into a hidden network. I've definitely gotten some of my best leads from people I haven't spoken to in years. Makes you think, huh? So basically, give and take is saying that you should stay in touch with people, even if you don't need anything from them right now, and just offer help when you can.
Exactly. It's about playing the long game, nurturing those relationships, even when there's no immediate benefit to you.
Makes sense.
All right, so we've talked about networking, but what about talent spotting? I mean, in media, it's all about finding the next big thing, right? The next star, the next hit show.
Probably.
Well, Give and Take has this fascinating example of Stu Inman. He was a basketball executive, and he was known for his ability to spot diamond in the rough players that everyone else overlooked. Now you're probably thinking, what does basketball have to do with media?
I was just going to ask that.
Well, it's not about the sport itself, it's about the strategic thinking behind it. Yeah, it's like, when you keep investing in something, a project, a person, whatever, even when it's clearly not working, just because you've already put so much time or money into it.
Oh, yeah, I've been there. It's tough to walk away when you feel like you've already invested so much.
Totally. But Inman was ruthless about cutting his losses. He knew when to walk away, even if it meant admitting he was wrong.
So how does that apply to media?
Well, think about it. How many times have you seen a network pour money into a show that's clearly a flop? Or a studio keep pushing a star who's past their prime? It's that sunk cost fallacy in action.
Ouch, yeah.
And Inman's approach shows us that sometimes the best thing you can do is walk away and focus your energy on something else.
So in media, it's about being able to recognize when someone is a good investment and having the courage to walk away when they're not, no matter how much hype they might generate. It's about clear-eyed evaluation, not getting swayed by hype or sunk costs.
Exactly.
Okay, so we've got networking, talent spotting, but what about negotiation? I mean, isn't a giver approach going to make you a pushover at the negotiating table? Especially in media, where it feels like everyone's always trying to get the upper hand.
That's what most people think, right? That you got to be tough, aggressive, all that. But Give and Take presents a really different perspective. It talks about this concept called powerless communication.
Powerless communication.
Yeah, it sounds weird, right? Especially in media. But it's basically about using techniques that seem less assertive, like asking a lot of questions, admitting vulnerability, seeking advice, not being afraid to say, I don't know.
That sounds almost backwards, especially in a world where everyone's pitching and hustling. How does that translate to getting your ideas heard or landing a deal in media?
I know, right? It sounds counterintuitive, but the book argues that it can actually be incredibly effective. Think about it. In an industry that's full of people who are constantly trying to sell themselves, authenticity stands out.
Hmm.
People can spot a phony a mile away,
Oh,
right?
totally.
And this powerless communication, it makes you more relatable, more believable.
Because you're being real.
Exactly.
Okay, I can see that. So it's about building trust, right?
Yes, and the book gives this example of Dave Walton. He was a lawyer and he had a stutter.
A stutter.
Yeah, and instead of trying to hide it, he actually used it to his advantage in the courtroom. It made him more relatable and surprisingly more persuasive because he wasn't trying to be someone he wasn't.
Huh, that's interesting. So in media, where everyone's trying to project this image of perfection, a little vulnerability can actually make you more human, more genuine.
Right, and the book gives another example of an ad executive, this guy Don Lane, who was super successful. And he wasn't this hard-driving, take-no-prisoners type. He was really good at listening to feedback, being open to other people's ideas. And that's how he got people on board with his vision.
So it's not about being a pushover. It's about being strategic in how you help others, how you make them feel heard and respected.
Exactly.
Man, this is giving me so much to think about. Give and take is really challenging me to rethink my whole approach to success in media.
It is, isn't it?
It really is.
We've just scratched the surface, though. There's so much more to dive into. So we were talking about how giving can actually be a path to success. But let's talk about something else that's super common in media, especially, and that is burnout.
Oh, tell me that. It's like you're always on, constantly hustling, chasing the next story, the next project. It could be seriously draining and stressful.
Absolutely. And that's where Give and Take offers some, I think, really surprising advice. The book argues that giving, when you do it right, can actually be, get this, energizing.
Wait, what? How's that even possible? I mean, isn't giving supposed to be like selfless and draining?
Right, that's what we usually think. But the book says it's about finding the right balance, helping others in a way that also like fills your cup. And it gives this great example of this teacher, Connery Callahan, who was totally burned out, but instead of stopping all her volunteering and stuff, she actually leaned into it, but she did it strategically.
Okay, how did she do that?
She started chunking her volunteer efforts, focusing them on specific days or times so she could see the impact more clearly.
So instead of spreading herself thin, she like concentrated her giving. So it felt more impactful. I can see how that would be less draining.
Exactly. And that's something you can totally apply to media, right? Think about all the time and energy we waste on things that don't really matter. You can focus on activities that actually align with like your passions and your goals.
Right, right. Quality over quantity.
Yes. But there's another piece to this. Connery also talked about how she built a support network through giving.
Oh, yeah. Like a community.
Exactly. And that's so important, especially in media. We often work in these like really isolated, competitive environments. But by building a network through giving, you create this sense of like belonging. And it can really help you avoid burnout.
Right, right. So you're not just being harder, you're actually getting something out of it yourself.
Exactly. It's that sweet spot between helping others and like advancing your own goals. And the book gives this great example of John Huntsman Sr., the billionaire. He was super committed to philanthropy, but he also built this incredibly successful company.
So he was like proof that you can be ambitious and generous.
Right. And the book argues that this authorish approach actually makes givers more successful in the long run because they're more resilient, more adaptable.
I'm really liking this authorish giving idea.
Yeah, me too. It's really shifted my perspective on a lot of things.
Okay, so we've talked about networking, talent spotting, negotiation, burnout, but let's get even more tactical. Does Give and Take give any, like, concrete advice on how to actually be a more strategic giver?
Oh, yeah, totally, for sure. Lots of practical stuff. One of the big ones is this idea of sincerity screening.
Sincerity screening, what's that?
It's about like being able to spot the takers, those people who are always looking to get more than they give, so you can protect yourself.
Oh, yeah, those people. Always asking for favors, but never returning them. I've definitely met a few of those in the media world.
Right, exactly. And they can really drain your energy and your time.
So how do you spot them? What are the signs?
Well, the book gives a few tips. One is to pay attention to their language. Like, are they always talking about themselves, their accomplishments, their problems?
Oh, yeah, like a one-way conversation. It's all about them.
Exactly. And another thing is to watch how they treat other people. Like, are they nice to people who are above them, but then rude to people who are below them?
Oh, yeah, that's a classic sign. Kissing up, kicking down.
Exactly. And givers, they tend to be more consistent in how they treat people.
Right. They treat everyone with respect. So it's about being more aware, right?
Yeah, being observant. It doesn't only have to be suspicious of everyone, but just, pay attention to those red flags.
Okay, that makes sense. But what if you do want to help someone, even if they might be a taker?
Good question. Well, the book talks about this idea of relational accounts. It's kind of like, setting boundaries.
Right.
Like framing your giving in a way that benefits both of you. Not being manipulative, but just being mindful of like what you're getting out of it.
Okay, so an example. Like in media.
Okay, let's say you're a writer and people are always asking you to read their scripts.
Yeah. Happens all the time.
Right. And you want to be helpful, but you also have your own stuff to do. So instead of just saying yes to everyone, you could say something like, hey, I'm happy to read your script, but I'm also working on a project and I'd love to get your feedback on it when it's ready.
So you're offering help, but you're also like setting expectations, making it clear that it's a two-way street.
Exactly.
This is good stuff. It's like giving me a whole new playbook for how to navigate the media world.
I know, right? It's really changed how I think about things.
It really has.
It can really make a difference, especially for people who are just starting out, you know?
Oh, yeah, totally. Media is such a tough industry to break into. It can really help to have someone who, like, believes in you.
Exactly. And by championing those folks, those up-and-comers, those people from different backgrounds, you're actually helping to shape the future of the industry.
Making it more diverse, more inclusive. That's awesome. Okay, so I'm going to be a talent champion, lookout world. What else can givers do to, like, make a real difference in media?
Well, another big one is building bridges.
Bridges. Like, what do you mean?
Like between different parts of the industry, connecting people from different departments, different companies, even in different disciplines.
Oh, I get it. Breaking down silos, right? Fostering collaboration.
Yeah. And givers are really good at that. They're comfortable talking to people from all walks of life. They see the big picture.
They're the connectors, the networkers. Yeah, I love that. It's like creating this more collaborative, interconnected media landscape where everyone's working together, sharing ideas, supporting each other.
Exactly. And that leads to better work, more creative, more innovative.
This is so inspiring. It's like, I want to go out and change the world right now. One 5 minutes favor at a time.
That's the attitude. You don't have to do everything, right? Just small, consistent efforts. Those can make a huge difference.
Like that butterfly effect, right?
Yeah, exactly. And that's the thing about giving. It's a gift that keeps on giving.
Love it. Okay, before we wrap up, what's the one thing you want listeners to take away from all this? The one big lesson from give and take for people in media.
I think the biggest thing is to remember that giving isn't just about being nice. It's a smart strategy, especially in media where, your relationships are everything. Being a giver can really set you apart.
It's a competitive advantage. Who knew?
Right. It's like a secret weapon.
This has been amazing. I feel so energized, so ready to go out and make a difference.
Me too. And remember, it's not about being perfect. Just keep giving, keep helping others, and you'll be amazed at what you can accomplish.
Couldn't have said it better myself. On that note, we'll leave you with this. What's one small act of giving you can do today? Something that helps others and helps you get closer to your goals. Until next time, keep diving deep and keep giving generously.